Good afternoon, everyone. It is Friday evening, and as you'll notice, I am not sitting in a hall somewhere. I am not at NakaKon. Well, as it turns out, NakaKon was canceled about 45 minutes before load-in time on Thursday. The call was made to go ahead and postpone the show. Now, this came on the heels of Planet Comicon announcing ahead of time as well that it was shutting down. Across the United States, there's been quite a few different shows that have already postponed, if not completely canceled outright, for the year of 2020. For people like me, that's a little bit worrying. This has also been spreading into other things like outdoor avenues and fairs and different festivals like that. Kansas City alone, Kansas City, Missouri, and the greater metropolitan area around it, comprising of areas like Overland Park, Raytown, Independence, they're all going through their own measured approach toward it as well, too. And I think it's been varying from everywhere from we don't want any gathering of people that is more than 1,000 for health and safety concern, that sort of thing. I'm glad that these precautions are being taken and that things are happening in the right direction. There is a lot to unpack and a lot to talk about with it, but I'm primarily going to focus on sort of my own weirdness on this. I had originally recorded one that it was another video prior to this one. I recorded it last night. To say I looked disheveled looking in it was an understatement. I was, in that mode where I'm finishing packing up art reproductions and getting things together, but I kind of stopped because I had this gut reaction sort of feeling that I was like, I don't think NakaKon's going to happen. I really don't. So I ended up thinking about it way too much. And I thought, you know what? What's going to happen is what's going to happen. It's completely out of my control. There isn't anything I can do about it. And there was a small bit of me that was hoping that it was going to get canceled. My reasoning behind that was simple. Not only is it paramount that if everything is as it's showing up in countries like Italy and other places like that, where the COVID-19 virus is far more deceptively bad than we think it is, this is definitely something to be worried about. Now, I understand, depending on how you are on Facebook, social media in general, or whatever, you're going to get different avenues of this. Some people are being overly concerned and buying a lot of toilet paper. I just put this here as kind of like a bit of scenery. I actually didn't go out and buy this. I'm kind of a prepper in some ways, not like a doomsday prepper, but I do appreciate having things ahead of time, food and other stuff like that, for at least 30 days to 3 months ahead of time, if I can help it. I've always got a bug out bag and things like that. So something like this didn't really freak me out that bad. Still had to go to the grocery store, still saw stuff like this. This was my local Aldi, where people for some reason bought all the toilet paper, all the bottled water, and a lot of frozen chicken. Still trying to put that together. I'm not saying that those aren't some sort of necessity for people, but you do have tap water, and the Kansas City water isn't really bad. There isn't any, there's just, I often worry about the thought process that a lot of people go through when things really panic out. But then again, that's a whole nother thing. I'm simply focusing on the fact that I'm sitting here on a weekend, and I had rushed, man, I'm not even joking, guys. I had a few last minute freelance jobs. I had some other stuff I really, really needed to get out, and I was struggling with even just sleep, trying to get that stuff out, trying to prepare for the show. Because no matter what, I had actually started a few weeks back trying to get things together, but I had to wait, to get paid so I could get some printer ink. I didn't realize I was out of paper, the kind of paper that I normally use to print my art reproductions on, and then that turned into a happy accident because the new stuff I was printing is actually now on a softer, sort of almost like velour-like paper. It looks really nice, and the colors are like this super saturated, deep inking watercolor look that I really love. I may never go back to semi-gloss. With NakaKon, they're offering refunds. The hotel is trying to work with people, or was trying to work with people up until yesterday. If you end up staying the night, of course, you got to pay for that. And there were a lot of people that made the travel to come down to the show. Now, thankfully, from all I've heard, the vendors were wonderful that did show up, and they completely understood. Things happen. This was out of the control of the convention. The city, literally 45 minutes before loading time on Thursday, made the call that they were not going to allow the event to go through. The same sort of thing happened with Planet Comicon, only in the fact that they had a week ahead of time. Planet Comicon pulls vastly larger numbers than NakaKon does. So you have people also that were coming down for NakaKon and spending a few days and then going to Planet. So it was like a little bit over, it was like about a week and a half's worth of time to enjoy themselves, get their nerd on, do whatever. That evokes a lot of emotional response, from anger to worry to just depression, a lot of these things. I put myself in a weird sort of mental state on this one. I actually have post-non-con depression. Post-con depression is normally you're kind of part of this little fantasy land, sort of environment for a day or two or the entire weekend if you're an attendee. But if you're a vendor or an artist or anybody involved, intrinsically with the show, you're in there and you're in that environment. You're there to sell, to perform, to showcase, to talk to people. And when that rug gets pulled out from under you, it puts me in a weird headspace. Like, not Jesus, what I do now, Because you take time off from work, you get yourself mentally ready for all these things. I've been bagging stuff, I've been putting things together, doing all of this stuff. And I felt really odd because I was like, man, it's like, the only other thing I could really compare that to is as simple as something like psyching yourself up to go up and be a comedian on stage, and at the last minute finding out that, the stage is on fire or you got to get out of there or something, and it's such a weird feeling because, yeah, I'm a little depressed. At the exact same time, I understand why all this went down. I don't blame anyone. I mean, look, hopefully nothing severe does come of this. That would be ideal. Now, there's a lot of people too, and I've seen this all over social media, that are freaking out going, like, I don't understand why this can't be open and this sort of thing, and why are they calling a state of emergency with only a few confirmed cases? Well, for those of you that don't know, and this is in my own meager understanding of it, explained to me by people with far more knowledge. A state of emergency in any sort of local government is called so that they can access funding, equipment, and other resources and implement services for preventative health care, for preventative action, and to circumvent any really dire situations from happening. If nothing happens, that's the ideal setting. You don't want it to be like a Michael Bay movie where people are dying left and right until you go, oh, well, hell, now we need to do something. It doesn't have to be that over the top. In fact, that's the last thing you want it to be. And I can promise you that. Your average American is flipping out over toilet paper. There's videos of like fist fights and things happening over this stuff. It's not like that. It should never get to that point. It's ridiculous. In my thinking, it's like there's a lot more things you guys should be, that we all should be, myself included. Because there have been a few moments where I've been like, oh man, this is going to suck. And I was like, wait a minute. Let me cash that reality check, because first world problems, they're definitely real, and they show up. They rear their ugly head in circumstances like this, getting mad because, sports aren't on television or something else like that. You know what? It's okay. This is all stuff we invented. This is all stuff we made. We, at one point in time, as a race, existed without that stuff. So we're going to be fine, sincerely. And that being said, it's amazing that people will freak out over this, but they're not actually freaking out as badly over the virus directly. They're freaking out over the ability to survive it, and somehow this is the miracle cure. Not Scott brand tissue paper. I'm saying, like, in general, that these sort of things, and it's a weird sort of drive back toward materialism that kind of freaks me out. It's like, how about you focus on taking care of yourself? Don't touch your eyes, wash your hands, do that sort of thing. Be cognizant and worried for the elderly and for younger people, in general, because those seem to be the people that are the ones that are going to, have the hardest time with this virus. Sorry, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. I'm fine with what happened. It does suck. I am glad to see that there were people on Twitter and on Facebook, and even especially NakaKon, getting involved, saying, look, it's not the show, but maybe you guys can share things. I've been checked out for a while. There's been some weird stuff just in general for me. I was like, you know what, that's fine. I'll just find more stuff to work on beyond this, because at some point my own depression was going to start to overtake me. Yeah, I completely relate with what a lot of people were saying. I was reading some crazy and emotionally hard to read tweets on Twitter where people are like, please don't cancel NakaKon. This is the one thing I look forward to every year. This is the only time I get to see my friends, and they travel long distances to see each other. I've witnessed that firsthand. I've seen reunions and first-time meetups with people. I've seen little anime clubs and cosplayer groups meet for the first time. It is a beautiful moment. I am assuming the exact same thing was happening at Planet Comicon, and both of those shows draw a lot of people for the first time. The Final Four, the Terrible Two, whatever it is, the basketball thing, that was canceled too. I worked that as a security guard. There is an immense amount of people, a lot of drunks, that go to that. And there have been a lot of other things, St. Patrick's Day Parade, other stuff like that have been canceled out right here. I get it. I understand that people are going to complain because they're going to be bored, or they're going to miss out on things, or, oh, no fun, hashtag I'm sad, whatever. Okay, that's fine. But in the scope of things, if everything turns out okay, and it is boring, or you manage to make it through this unscathed, not even getting sick, then count your lucky stars that nothing really bad happened, and that you have hopefully many more years, especially if you're younger, 20s to 40s, whatever, to enjoy other years, more bountiful years, better years. Under no circumstance am I telling anyone what to think, and I'm hoping that's not coming across that way. I think I was more distressed by the fact that it seemed that people were more inclined to be angry about the circumstances, and in a lot of regard didn't really think too much about their fellow person and how all this is hammering out. Back to the shows, NakaKon, I guess, isn't going to be coming back in 2020 anytime. They're already saying that anything you paid on will end up transferring over to 2021 at probably the same time and everything. I imagine they've made this date cemented in with the hotel that they're at. With Planet, they've announced that they're looking to get something set up in the fall, which would be interesting. I probably still won't do the show, but it would be interesting to see what exactly is going to end up happening. We don't really know how long this is going to last. If this does end up amping up in severity for some reason, if things really do get out of control, I would expect that things are going to get a little harder to go through. You see, for a lot of people, Naka and Planet, especially the two of them, if they were doing them one after another, could have made up anywhere between, I would go so far as to say, according to what people have said online, between a quarter to 1/3 of their income for the year. That's a lot of money. When I'm saying that, I don't have a number to attenuate to that, but I can say that if you're making a decent amount of income from this, and you're still, you're in the maybe 26K to 38K zone with what you're selling in art over the course of a year, and you're taking 1/3 of that away, that hurts. Especially considering this is the first salvo across the bow. You don't really know what's going to happen for the rest of the year. And I am not under any circumstance trying to get anyone all freaked out about this or anything else like that. I'm simply saying, in my opinion, to have all these precautions now, to have all these sort of things happen right now, I'll deal with that. I'll go through it the best I can. I'll support my fellow artists. I'll do what I can in that respect because I want to see everyone around at the end of the year in better shape than we are now. There has to be some good that comes out of this. There has to be something okay that comes out of this. This is affecting everything. I even ended up calling up my dentist. I go to UMKC to get dental work done. I was messaging him early. I'm like, so what's going on? Is the school going to be closing down? And he really didn't know either way, and it's such a weird nebulous time right now for all of these things going on. And the Nelson will be closing for a few weeks. And that's public knowledge already. It's going to be shut down for a while. When you start looking at the fact that the nonprofit museums and other places like this are taking it this seriously, and then you're hearing news coming in from like places like Italy, where I think today it's accounted now that it's been 200 or 250 deaths. I don't know that number exactly. Saw it earlier. This was through the news, through the BBC. That's a little bizarre. It's a little weird to see those sort of numbers. I don't know in retrospect what that compares to with the amount of people that were actually sick in total. But guess what? I don't care. There's still people that got sick and died. I don't care when people come up to me and say, well, they were old anyway. Shut up. Shut up. That was somebody's grandparent. That was somebody's mother. That was somebody's father. That was somebody's neighbor. That was somebody's caretaker. That was somebody. And it drives me crazy that people can become that apathetic about something, that they can allow themselves to completely excise any sort of sympathy from here and up here. Like, Okay, I probably jumped on it. If you can tell, I'm extremely riled up about a lot of stuff. It has been a very weird weekend. Though in comparison, compared to a lot of other people I know, I really haven't had to deal with a whole bunch. I mean, yes, I'm not at NakaKon. Yeah, that's depressing. I also know that they did the best they possibly could. I know that under the circumstances, there was no other way this really would have worked out. I am much more happy knowing that as far as I know and as far as I feel, I don't have the coronavirus. Knock on so much wood. You know, I'll just end up spending this weekend packing up the rest of my stuff. I had like, sincerely, I've had like a stack of these things down here that need to be put away and stored up in boxes for the next show, whatever that's going to be. I did end up going out, and because I was a little depressed, I ended up finding some Star Wars comics I hadn't seen and or read yet. So these were cool. These actually came bagged, poly-bagged in the thing. I guess I'm used to buying these comic floppies not in the board and bag. Aside from that, man, I don't know what happened to my voice right there. It's like I went through puberty for a second. Aside from that, I guess I had to make this video just to be a little bit cathartic, because it does seem like it's really crazy and really nuts out there. And I know that it's kind of a scary time. I think the best that we can do is just be smart. And I do believe there is a slight bit of media hype. I mean, it makes people click on things. They make money off of it. There is that. At the exact same time, I don't feel it's in our best interest as a larger community to underestimate what is going on. Sometimes the most innocuous dangers can be laying right underneath, and you'll never know they're there. Who knows what the future is going to bring us? I do know this much. The future will definitely bring me trying to get back into NakaKon in 2021. I will be there. I will, you know, it's actually kind of shocking. I may not have any other major show that I'm going to do where I will be able to set up this big setup that I had specifically for this show. And I'm trying to figure that out. And honestly, I don't know how many other shows are going to cancel out. I've seen everything from Louisiana to up north in Chicago, over to New York, and down in Florida, that big old crazy rhombus-shaped area, that are canceling. You know, going a little stock knowledge on you there. The Dow is looking fantastic. I mean, if fantastic is a paralyzed falcon, it's great. Couldn't be better. And thanks, by the way, to the government for injecting that little tiny pittance of a $1.3 trillion into it. Oh, it's great. Fantastic. I can see we're climbing up from this ditch. It sucks. It really does. And I'm not even going to put the blame on anyone at this point in time. I don't even care. I'm more upset about the fact that as a whole, you know, there just seems to be a lot of things going wrong. And in that circumstance, you can do one of two things. You can either sit there and be completely depressed and angry and just want to leave the country, or you can try and dig in your heels and try and make every day better. I am going to elect to do the latter. So that's my update. That's what happened with me. I never even made it to the actual convention center. I just kind of sat around, and I was fairly certain it was just going to be canceled. And I wasn't that surprised it was, you know, shortly after Planet had called it and pulled the plug on their entire venue plans. So smaller shows will probably still be going on. So if there's microcons and stuff like that, and you guys are into that sort of thing, I imagine those will still be going on fairly strongly. I do wonder, you know, with the absence of these larger shows, how that will affect the smaller shows, if attendance will become greater and that sort of thing. That's actually not a bad thing either. That's going to start driving it back to the smaller shows, more personal shows. You won't have as many media guests. You know, you're not going to get an Adam Savage at a smaller show that only has 1,000 people, but you are going to get the opportunity to talk to people about their art on a personal level and see a lot more stuff than you probably would get a chance to see when you go to something large like an SDCC or WonderCon or any one of these things that are just so visually overwhelming that you're just, I mean, if you're not doing that, you're standing in the hall, you know, right in front of Hall H for like 3 hours to go see an Avenger, you know, talk jokes on a stage or something like that. I actually don't know. I don't know. I'm not even really making fun of that. I find it a little crazy to just wait for a panel like that. I mean, that's never, like, I've never had to do that before, so I imagine I probably would if I had the opportunity, but I just don't see that. I'm like, man, there's too many other cool things to do. Maybe I'm just getting old and cranky. Maybe I should be more concerned about coronavirus. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later. And and for any of you who've been to SDCC, do you just like, like train your bladder ahead of time? I mean, I'm being completely honest. Like, I think I'm still fairly robust in that. Like, I got no issues there. Disregard this.